Welcome back to a Bevy of Bloods for round 18 of the 2023 season. Bevy OG Stevo joins me and we get stuck into the close game and the win over the Dogs. So fluff up your tail feathers and settle in for a potentially biased yarn about all things to do with our beloved Bloods. G'day there, Signets and Swanlings. My name is Chris, back from a European trip and joined ironically by our Euro correspondent, Stevo. Stevo, mate, how you doing?
I'm good, mate. Good to be back. It's been a while, I think. I was looking at the episode list and North Melbourne was the last time that I was here, so it's definitely been a while. But what that means is, yeah, I've got another win to talk about.
That's it. You keep joining up in the wins and Paul Brady is joining up in the losses. But
yeah, mate.
You've got to work it all out. All right, look, before we kick off, once again, if you enjoy our podcast and you want to show some support to what we do and what generally is going out there in Swans, socials, stuff, make sure to follow us on all the social medias. Wherever you listen to the podcast, give us a like. It does go a long way. We do appreciate it. And thank you for everyone who has done so and have been doing so recently. It makes a huge difference. We thank you very, very much. Now, stuck into the game details. Last Thursday night at the SCG, our Sydney Swans defeated the Western Bulldogs by 2 points with a final score of 11-12-78 to 11-10-76. So, Stevo, mate, first impressions, what did you make of that?
Oh, I was just glad to see a bit of fight. Hey, I was afraid that, given how the last few weeks have gone, that we'd just get rolled for the next couple of games and have a really disappointing limp out to the season. But at least now, whether we make the finals or not, we'll probably talk about that later on. It's not entirely up to us, but yeah, good to see a bit of will to win at the end of what's been a pretty disappointing season, and nice to mess up the Dogs' finals plans a bit. I think we still owe them a few.
I love it, yep.
From previous games, so I wasn't too upset to see them go down. And look, really, the best thing for me was John Longmire. I mean, his 300th game as coach. He's the massive games leader for coaching at the Swans. The next best after him is Paul Roos at 202, so he's almost 100 ahead of Paul Roos. By the end of the season, he will be. And I'm going to read out a couple of his stats as a coach. 1 premiership, 4 grand finals, 62% winning record, made finals in 10 out of 12 seasons so far for 12 wins and 12 losses in finals. That's a pretty decent coaching CV for me. So I was stoked that they got a win for his 300th game.
Yeah, and you can see how much it meant to him and the players straight after the game, right? He was out there pointing at the players. It was apparently Errol and Papley were going to put him on his shoulders and walk him off. It was a bit of a G up. That was obviously never going to happen. The man is as big as a horse, legitimately. Yeah, but yeah, mate, like, super happy. And the numbers you said there, 62% winning record, finals in 10 of these 12 seasons, and a 12-12 win-loss record in the finals, mate. Anyone would take that for them, for their coach. Anyone in the league would say that is a mad record and they'll take that overnight. And there's a lot of coaches out there looking for a job at the moment, and you can only pray if you want support of another club, you get someone as consistent as that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another thing that might sort of strike a bit strange, 62% winning record, but only 50% in finals, 12-12. But in a final, it's impossible to exit the finals without losing at least once unless you win the premiership. So that's why I think that this 12-12 is really, really good. To win 12 finals is massive.
And in playing one of the top 8 teams of the whole league, right?
Yeah, that's
and
it.
Whoever you play, right? That's huge. Look, I did my best, my absolute best to try to jinx the team beforehand. I saw Sir Swamp Thing, who has a Twitter account, who's the best statistician, the most interesting statistician out there for sports generally. He's amazing. He focuses on AFL and cricket. But he noted that the best win streak of the AFL was whoever was coming 15th on the ladder, and for 7 wins at that point. So I made sure that I posted that out to everyone to make sure I did my best to jinx us. But thankfully, we got up, and so that winning streak for 15th place continues to 8 wins in a row. So, yeah, I did my best on my part. What are you going to do? Look, the game was scrappy, as we spoke about earlier, right? The game was a funny game. It didn't start necessarily in our way. It started with them dominating out of the centres and looked to be a bit of a long night for us in the O'Reilly stand. And out they come for out of the first quarter, into the second quarter, sorry, and they just changed it around. They turned into a really scrappy game and just arm wrestled it over, mate. Is that what you saw on your side too?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at some point, probably in like the second and third quarters, I was watching on the TV, and it was like watching like local footy, like park footy. It was scrappy. The ball was on the ground a lot. It was in dispute a lot. But the Swans just kept throwing themselves, and they wouldn't let the Bulldogs get that space to get that really nice little flick hand pass game of theirs going. The Swans they really set themselves to task, and I think John Longmire engineered a very good win.
Yeah, totally. There's always this chatter about there's no plan B, there's no plan B, et cetera, et cetera. There was clearly a plan B because they came out, got thrashed, then came out afterwards looking like a different team with different mentality, different tactics, and it paid itself off pretty well. I mean, if we look at some of the good, the bad, and the stats, if we roll on in there, 90 tackles for the Swans, huge, with the average of ours being 65. So we were plus 32 on tackles, and 90 tackles in a general sense is just massive stuff, and the most that we've had for this season. So a very prominent display there in the tackle front.
Yeah, on the tackles too. I love tackles inside 50, and the Swans had 22 tackles inside 50 to the Bulldogs 9, and that's double the Swans average for the year, which is 11, and that's including that 22. So it would have been a little bit lower than that going into the game once you chuck in that 22 into the average. So 22 tackles inside 50 is massive, and that's the intent, that's the pressure, that's the desire to trap that ball in there and not let the Bulldogs get that quick out, because really they've got their dominant clearance game, but then the Swans were able to beat them all over the field besides there.
Yeah. Look, apart from the tackles, right? We were. The stat lines looked entirely in their favour. Like clearances were all of their way, disposals were all of their way, inside 50 deals were all of their way. But it seemed like the tackles, just what you were saying there as well, just a bit earlier, was they just could not get a run on with the ball, and so they just seemed to have wiped out any a lot of the gains that they would have had with possession, with clearances and whatnot. They just couldn't finish it off, and it was such an interesting way to win, because if you had suggested to me that we're going to lose every single stat line, have Bontempelli on an absolute tear, and have Tim English on an absolute tear, and Liberatore doing exactly what Liberatore does typically, those guys are going to be pretty much reigning free, yet we're still going to win the game. I would have been baffled as to how you would make that happen.
Yeah, if you'd told me that Bontempelli would be best on ground, and he was, I think he was a clear best on ground. I'll be surprised if he doesn't get the 3 Brownlow votes for this match. If you told me that he was going to be best on ground, I would have thought we probably don't win, but we did. Yep.
Yeah, no, exactly it. Look, we spoke about Bontempelli, Liberatore. The top 4 clearance getters for the Dogs, the top 4 clearance getters were the Dogs, and then Errol, Park and Paps following them. So they were having a little bit of a field day, mate. Tim English is too damn good, and the centers is too damn powerful. But they kind of, when they went inside 50, they were quite shallow. I felt like they didn't get very deep in. If they did get deep, it was then contested. So I don't know whether we had a conscious effort to be able to make them, or put on just enough pressure for them to kick a bit earlier. But he just came together.
Yeah, and I think that the effort of the back six or seven of the Swans was excellent. I mean, they really had, going forward, they had Norton was their option. Ugle Hagen didn't have much of an impact, and he's been playing pretty well. Like, he's starting to really grow into himself, because he's from that same draft that Logan McDonald's come from. So, these guys have had a few years in the system now. They did a really good combined defensive effort on him. Their smaller forwards didn't really have much of an impact either when the ball was on the ground, because, we were at the deck ready to get the ball and sweep it out of there. Tim English was dominating in the middle. He was winning clearances, he was winning inside 50, he was winning taps, he was everywhere. And again, like him, Bontempelli, Liberatore all had massive games. You'd think that means we lose the match. But it was everywhere else on the field, and especially the way that they were able to pressure their midfielders, keep the ball inside our forward 50 and not let them get easy exits, and then the way that our backline was able to defend as a team really, really well, and then sweep the ball out as soon as we won it back. And the way that they rebounded from back 50 to the forward line was amazing, the Swans in this game.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're going to talk a little about Ollie Florent, who was a big part of that as well in the game. And probably a bit of a quick shout out to Cunningham, who was, I just felt like absolutely, if the ball was on the ground or ball was being contested in that backline, half backline there, he was just right onto it. He was doing so much, like he was just everywhere. When the ball was as scrappy as it could be, he was kind of, a big part of that. So he's been a bit of the whipping boy lately, and he's not done a whole lot of things on the stat line, but I can just say that from what we saw and in the game, that Cunningham is just brilliant. Like, he just plays such a good role in so many different ways. So diverse in his skill sets and what he does for the team. It's just hard to not put him on the field, because even if he has a bad day, it's not going to be every day, right? It's just freaking really good. It's just where you're playing, basically. He's just going to do the job.
Yeah, and these role-playing players, we talk about this a lot, but people are a bit critical of Cunningham because of whatever reasons. He's not getting the numbers they maybe would like to see, or maybe makes a few errors, but he keeps getting picked every week. So whatever he's doing, the coaching group are happy with what he's doing.
Yeah, is it, mate? Is it a bit ironic that the two behinds were the winning points for us?
Well, I guess one of them. Which two were the winning ones? I guess Buddy Franklin's winning behind in the last quarter.
And I think Juzzy, was it? Maybe at the end there, Juzzy?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, running in from the pocket, or from near the boundary line. Yeah, those were they the two last ones. And funnily enough, actually, and the commentators mentioned this on the TV feed. They didn't mention the behind, but they mentioned that 10-9-69 was the score in that 1996 game when Tony Lockett kicked that big behind to get Swans into that grand final. And then I thought it was quite appropriate that Tony Lockett was our big gun forward who kicked that one, and then Buddy Franklin at 10-9-69, he kicked the point to get us to 10-10-70. So there was a nice little bit of intergenerational symmetry going on there.
That's not bad. I like that. It's actually a pretty good shout out. The things we would have done for one of those freaking points at the Cats game. Anyway, let's not get into that. But it's just funny how the 2 points ended up getting us over.
Yeah, we got there looking to win. I don't care. In this sort of season, any season, the win's a win. I'll take it. Yeah,
I mean, I look forward to looking back in this whole season and the freaking roller coaster that it's been, like between the injuries, the concussion, the people who were lost, the way we lost them. It's just been an insanely emotional process all the way through. So let's just get to the end of this damn season. We'll go from there, mate. Look, favourite moments, missed chances. What do you have on your side that you want to talk through?
I got a couple of favourite moments. The first one, and you've already spoken about this a bit already, but the way that all the players went to Longmire on the field after the game, that says so much, I think, and quite a few people in the media, like ex-players, commentators, etc., have commented on it in the last few days on the panel shows and whatnot, and that says everything about how the players see that guy. I just think he's such an impressive coach and mentor, and who wouldn't want to play for the guy? I mean, if you're a young player, even as an older player, why would you not want to play for that guy? He's quite a special one, and I'm glad that he's at the Swans. And then the other one,
just on that point there. Sorry, mate, I was just going to say, we were at Swans HQ after the game, and Amati was actually doing it. They have one of the players or one of the executives go up there and say something at the end of the game. And Amati was out there, and they asked him a few questions. Obviously, they asked him about Longmire's 300, and he said really candidly, and we posted it up. We were pretty hammered while we're filming it. That's why the film is quite shaky. I will blame myself. But he was in essence just describing the man that he is, the mentor that he was, and also suggesting, look, he's kind of kept me on for 4 years while I've been working through the juniors, working through myself, and he's been very open about where we stand and what I need to work on. It's just been an absolutely wonderful man to be with, and a true leader of the club. So really nice, poignant things to be said about him from a guy who has effectively been on the fringe for a couple of years, battling his way back in, and it's just done to show some colour. So yeah, just beautiful words from a player there. That was really nice to hear.
Yeah, too right, and he's looking good, Amati too. He's really this year taken a big step forward, which is great to see. And then I guess another key forward, the other one I want to talk about was Buddy Franklin. His mark and goal after that halftime siren to put the Swans in front for the first time in the game. I'm pretty sure it was for the first time in the game. And that was it was one of these scripted to be a classic big body moment, wasn't it? It was amazing, and we've had plenty of them, and it's starting to get 6 weeks to go in the season, maybe a final or two if we get lucky. But really, it's getting into buddy appreciation mode for me, and that every time he's playing footy, I just want to enjoy watching one of the absolute greats do his stuff. And I reckon he's going to come home flying. I reckon he will. Like, the end is in sight now. He's a stayer. He's not a sprinter. This season for him has been a matter of building at the right times. And 6 weeks to go, I reckon he's chomping at the bit to wreak some havoc on the last month and a half of the season.
Yeah, he's a competitor, right? He's going to want to finish off super strong. So no doubt about it. And that goal, the angle, I just keep coming back to the angle of the goal was roughly whereabouts he kicked that 1,000 from as well. So it just kind of, for me, it just has this this mental image of just fantastic things happening. Like this emotion that goes with Buddy, and then he kicks another one from them. It's like, wow, like this guy just continually reminds me how lucky we've been to watch him at it for all these years, for like a decade, right? Just, yeah, we're blessed. We are absolutely blessed to have that guy. Buddy appreciation year.
Yep,
it's hard to imagine. I don't want to think about it, but we really do need to start preparing ourselves emotionally for this because it's going to happen.
Yeah, and I also want to enjoy each week as it comes. Just you don't get that many chances to see a great player ever, and we got 6 more weeks at least where hopefully he plays. Yeah, that's it. Touching wood, no injuries, and just kind of get on with it. Poor Buddy. This is going to be mad. That last game is going to be it's against the D's as well, isn't it? So, yeah, it's going to be epic, absolutely epic. Look, I've just got one. My favorite moments, I guess, there was an absolute scrap of ball play and high pressure in the beginning of the third. That just came out to show all intention of the style of football that we're going to be playing. And it kind of started off in the middle, went into their forward line, so like their half forward line. Cunners was a big part of it. Juzzy was a part of it. Errol was a part of it. Rowie, Parker, of course. They're all just running in there head first, trying to keep that ball scrapping, keep it going forward. There's like 6 kicks going, like just punting it forward, as you said, like basically under sixes soccer style, that kind of vibe. Eventually it made its way forward. We got ourselves a clean kick, and I think Errol ended up kicking it to someone. Might have been Buddy. And then he went ahead and kicked the goal from the back of that. But I was just like true intention of what the plan was, and they just stuck it through, and it was nasty, it was dirty, it was stressful, but they got it done. And I think that's the key of it. It was great. It's great to watch. All right, mate. 3, 2, 1, Bob Skilton. Sorry, not the Bob Skilton. This is the fake Bob Skilton. This is the Bob medal, Bevy of Bloods medal, in which the Bevy of Bloods equivalent of the Bob Skilton. We give 3, 2, 1 points to the best Swans players. And this week, what can we give them? I'm not really sure. My grandma made some mad cookies over the weekend. All right, some Chilean cookies. They're called chilenitos. They're kind of dulce de leche, and they've got like some cookie, and they're covered in icing sugar and some coconut. They're super delicious. So I'm gonna give out a box of those out to 3, 2, 1. 3 points for Errol, 2 points for Papley, and 1 point for Ollie Florent. All right, mate, do you want to take away with Errol? Oh, like, what can we say about him? We don't say every week. The kid is a gun. 30 touches, 11 inside 50s. That was the best. 7 scoring involvements, 5 clearances, 773 metres gained. Again, the best. Like he's loading up every single week, and I think even the VFL, like the Victorian-based AFL media, because most of it is Victoria-based, has started to take notice of this kid, that they can't ignore him. We had Lee Montagna. I was watching First Crack on Fox Footy the other night, on Sunday night, and Lee Montagna said that he's Sydney's best player. He's a top 15 player in the competition, and he should be a lock for All-Australian. And I think that the momentum is starting to build, that this guy, as a 20-ish-year-old, is something amazing. Yeah.
I think Jules in our chat mentioned that, could this be the best beginning of any career to modern memory? I can't imagine. I can't think of anyone else that have been this dominant so early in their career.
For a Swans player or for everyone?
For a Swans player, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, because I think Dacos would probably have something to say about it.
Yeah, I can understand the Collingwood supporters going, excuse me. Yeah. What is it, third year in? Yeah.
Isn't it his second season, isn't it?
I think it's his. You're right. I think it's his second season. Oh my god, he's a freak.
He's probably going to win the Brownlow medal, All Australian. He'll probably win the Norm Smith medal and a premiership in a year. Like, that's how I imagine.
Oh, what
but
a
Errol's
jerk.
pretty good too. I like Errol too. They're both good.
Yeah, he's pretty good. He's pretty good. You've been super hot on Errol since the day he joined the VFL, since the day he joined the Swans. You've been so hot on him, and it's showing. Like there was no one in the world that had been like, oh, he's overrated. But everyone's been like, oh yeah, he's pretty good. But you have been like, this kid is going to be an absolute star since the beginning, right? Like you've been a
it's
huge
just the way
advocate.
he moves. It's the way he uses the ball. It's the way that he gets himself to contests that he stands out even in an elite group of draft kids that we took that year. I mean, that year, this is a pretty good draft. We took Logan McDonald pick 4, Braden Campbell through the academy pick 5, Errol Goulden, what was he, pick 30 or so in the academy, and that was it. 3 players, and look at them all. They're all going to be very good, but I think Goulden is just a step above at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. Noddy has a theory. It's not like Noddy's theories. It's not terrible theories, but there's a lot of bending of minds that needs to get involved. When his hair is really bad, he plays better. So I think his hair was particularly shitty this time. So yeah, maybe this is all part of it.
It's certainly not discountable, I guess.
Yeah, we're not saying he's right, but there's no reason for us to prove he's wrong. So
Yeah.
it's a solid scientific fact at this point that his hair's bad. He plays better.
It's a bit like the Rampy suspension, non-suspension that we'll talk about in a bit.
Yeah. There's bending of minds that can happen in any way.
Yeah.
So
Just however you look at it,
that's it. So Errol with the 3 points, well deserved. Just continuing to put up numbers. At this point, we haven't done the numbers in the back end, but I would have to imagine that he's winning the Bob medal and going to be winning the Bob Skills medal at this stage. It's just been more consistent, I guess, and it's more been the second half of this season, I'd say, that he's been getting better and better. But he's getting 3 points consistently. Like, what are you going to do about that? He's just too damn good, and he's making absolute guns like Parker look like they're mortal. I mean, that's just wild, right? Absolutely wild.
Yeah, he's absolutely standing out in a competition where there's a lot of good players. Not just the Swans. I mean, I'm talking about the whole league. I agree with Montagna. I think he's a top 15 to 20 player in the AFL already.
Well, I was looking at the champion data, and they were suggesting that I think he was 8th best player in the league or 9th or something. With actually Nick Blakey at 6 of all places. So in terms of just they're absolute stats geeks, and so like how much do you take what they say with too much? But in terms of pure stat numbers, Blakey and Errol are up there in the top 10 players in the league, which is basically he's just getting the accolades from a few different angles now. And then Lee Montagna, he's got some pretty ordinary ideas, but I think he's running the money here. So good stuff.
I love how we bag them, like not just Montagna, all these commentators. We will rip into them, and as soon as they say something good about a Swans player, no, he knows stuff. This guy, he's not a fool.
Well, he said some pretty weird things.
Yeah,
he's got it together this week. Yeah. Yeah, it's probably right. We were never of the assumption that we weren't totally biased on this podcast, so we'll make that clear out front.
Yeah.
All right, mate. Papley with 2 points. Do you want to go through his stat lines?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to... 4 goals. He had a score assist in there. A couple of 4 clearances, 9 score involvements. All this from a small forward who spends a bit of time in the midfield. And that's a massive effort. What do we get? Was it 11 goals in the end? I think
11 goals, yeah.
Yeah, and our small forwards kicked 4 of them and given off another one. So he's either kicked or had a direct assist in almost half of the goals, which is pretty amazing. And the commentary team were very fixated on the fact that it was Tom Papley's birthday, at least the Channel 7 one that I was watching. They continually mention this, and that made me realise that Tom Papley is a Cancer. Like, his star sign is a Cancer. And I would never have picked him as a Cancer because he's so bubbly and up and about and full of beans and jumping jack and all of this. I would have thought he was, like a I don't know, like an Aries or a Sagittarius or an Aquarius or a Leo or like a Gemini, one of these sort of more effervescent, all over the shop kind of styles. He's a Cancer, amazing, a little crab. He's a crab. There you go.
He does get out there like a little crab with that aggression, a little aggression that he has. Yeah, mate, like he's a confidence player. Like it's his birthday, he knows the cameras are going to be in him. So he just gets out there and gets out there harder. Like any time that there's an opportunity for him to kind of celebrate, we know how hard he celebrates, and maybe being his birthday was that calling card for him to just really throw himself out there, because he was unbelievable. He was really, really grand. And 4 goals, 4 clearances, 9 involvements, an assist. Like, come on, mate. Like, the best that we have.
Impactful goals. Like those 2 goals that he got in the last quarter, especially the one that ended up being the match winner. That was massive. Like, massive pressure on that. He's got the ball bobbling in front of him in the goal square, and he says, "Nup, this is my footy," because Wicks was sort of there hovering as well, and Papley's like, "Nup, this is my ball." And bang, and off he goes, and he does the windmill. And you hear Daisy Pearce, if you're watching on the telly, you would have heard Daisy Pearce. She said, I've tried to do that. I've tried to do it myself, and I couldn't do it because it hurt my arm. so,
even his celebrations are hardcore.
That's it. He's just up and about, wasn't he, in that game?
I love it. Love the Paps. It's so good to have him. Happy birthday, Paps, if you haven't heard that a billion times by now from the team over there at Channel 7. But hey, like whatever it takes. Maybe it's his birthday next week. We can just change his birth certificate. We'll do whatever it takes.
We do what people do on social media. They change their birthday on purpose just to see if their friends are their true friends and know their birthday. Maybe you could just keep pumping one out every week.
This is a true story. A friend of mine, Dino, he doesn't listen to this. He's an NRL head. But Dino knows who he is if he ever gets wind of this. But he once said it was his birthday, and it was like September or something. We're all like, oh, cool. So we went out. This is when we were much younger. We're like 18. So, go out there. He doesn't have to buy beers. We bought all the beers. It's all fine. And then it was like February's coming up to my birthday, and it hit me. I'm like, hang on, Dino is born in March. He's younger than me. I remembered. And I was like, hang on, did we have a birthday for you in September? He's like, yeah, mate, no one realised. I'm like, fuck, I don't know. This guy.
Oh, Dino. Wow.
Dino dodged us. It's not unusual.
Yeah. Owes everyone a character.
Yeah, he owes us all a beer. But this guy, buddy. Anyway, he's a teacher now. I'm not going to give away his last name, but he's a teacher.
Good.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, he's not trustworthy, but I'm not going to give out his last names. That's fine. All right, mate. 1 point to Ollie Florent, who was really and has really been slowly burning it up and slowly showing his true form in his different ways, including being a half a tagger and playing out of the halfback a bit more, mate. What do you just see from old Ollie Florent?
He just keeps on going on in what's turned into a really, really strong season. I mean, his drive off halfback is amazing. He's always cutting through lines. He uses the ball really, really well. And this week, what I really liked is he got a couple of really important goals. And when your halfbacks and sort of like defensive side of the field players are hitting the scoreboard, that really, really stings the opposition because it's showing that you've got so many different ways to hit the scoreboard, and that it's showing that their half forwards need to be more accountable too. That last one that he got in the final quarter, that goal where he was just on his own, like how do you leave him there? Why haven't the Dogs rolled another player up? And that shows that their system is just that something is broken down, like some communication, maybe a handover, who knows? But the fact that he's just putting himself in a dangerous positions, and this week he got the rewards from, which was nice. Just like
35, 40 meters out, right down the middle, like just chilling. No one picked him up. Yeah, like that's it. And it's just sneaky. And he kind of like comes together with him and Blakey. Blakey is absolutely tearing it up. Ollie's having, a quieter game. He's not, when I say quiet, he's still getting his possessions. He's doing his thing. He's just being a solid player. But when they're paying attention to Blakey, as they did, because they shot his run down a couple of times pretty quickly, knowing what Blakey does, Ollie gets off the chain. So you really have these two players that are kind of they're obviously very different. They've got different skill sets. They don't quite have that. No, Ollie doesn't quite have that dash, that crazy down the middle, insane lizard run that Blakey has, but he does have a fair bit of speed and he can use it, and he knows how to open up a game, and he's a smart footballer. He knows where to stand. He's just, super happy, and he's really turning into that player that we were hoping he would turn into. This year is really coming together, right?
Yeah, and I mean, we kind of forget maybe because he's been a bit outshadowed by the Gouldens and co from the higher end of the draft, but he was a high draft pick. I think was he like 11th or 12th pick in his
In my head,
particular draft
11.
year?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was quite a high pick. So he's been identified from the beginning as an elite player, and to get from pick 11 someone who's become like him, I think that's a really good result.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, draft 11 in 2016. So yeah, perfectly. It's coming together really well. I believe it's his 25th birthday, either today or next couple of days. Hang on, 22nd of July, which is it's in the next game.
He's probably on the borderline. Is he going to be a Cancer or a Leo? He's got to be right on the edge, I reckon. I'd have to check. I'm not that. Is it just me? Okay, not knowing a whole lot about star signs, but does that come across as more of a Cancer than obviously Papley is? Obviously, very different. Ollie Florent to me would be a total Cancer. Yep, right. Absolutely. And Tom Papley maybe more of a Leo. So maybe they were just born on the wrong days. It's just a mix-up.
Yeah, right. Okay. So, 22nd of July is his birthday. So we'll go ahead, crunch these numbers and come back. He's actually a Cancer. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, by one day. Okay. Yeah. Oh, interesting. Okay. Anyway, we're not a star sign podcast, are we? For the others
no. Well, not yet. Not yet.
We'll listen to this and think, what are you letting Stevo talk about?
That's why. All right.
This is why I'm only an occasional guest,
If it was up to Stevo, we're just talking star signs for all the players in the next 4 hours. So I'm going to do everyone a favour to move on. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Moving on. Honourable mentions. I've got a couple, if you don't mind. I already mentioned Cunningham being probably the better game that he's had of the year. Just the style of football that we were playing, I felt just kind of suited him. Just being grindy, messy, just grabbing everywhere. We know that he can tag as a small defender. He's done a couple of good numbers around as well. So yeah, happy to see what happened there. And I also throw up Heaney. Heaney did a lot of stuff around the ground with very little numbers to really back that up. He was up there contesting for so many balls. He was out there putting pressure down, tackling. He was doing loads and loads and loads of stuff around the whole ground and didn't have the marks, didn't have the possessions to really factor it. But I think they were keeping a bit of a close eye on him and for good reason. But I was really happy with the way that he played. So that was my two right there, Cunningham and Heaney. Sorry, mate. Did you have anyone else that you want to throw some love out to?
Oh, there were quite a few, really. I mean, when a good win, you've always got a lot of positive things to say about a lot of players, I guess. But I think Luke Parker again just does what he always does. He's a beast, and his body work was really strong around those stoppages, and helped. Even though the Bulldogs might have been winning it, they weren't getting nearly the influence from it. While we're on physical pressure, Franklin was really great, especially in that last quarter, but throughout the game, like he won a free kick from holding the ball. How often do you see him do that, really?
Yeah, that's it.
It's not really something that tall forwards do that much. And then in the final quarter, his physical work was amazing, the way that he really held them up. Rowbottom was the same. His physical work was great. He tackles like a beast, and he's a very, very strong developing young player as well, Rowbottom. And then the only other one that I guess I'll bring up now is Tom McCartan. Good to see him getting back some confidence and some form. He played a really, really strong game in the back line. He really led the back line, him and Rampy and Milliken, who unfortunately got hurt, but they really played well as a defensive unit. And he took some great intercept marks, which was good to see him getting that sort of confidence to put himself in that spot and just clunk the ball. So I really liked his game as well.
Yeah, look, Tommy McCartan, 13 1%ers, 7 rebound 50s, 8 intercepts. Yeah, pretty massive game. He's a bit unlucky to not get a point, but yeah, it's just good to see him back and good to see him in some form. So he's hoping for the rest of the season we see the old Tommy McCartan. Just rinsing people, just holding them out like a block. On the Rowbottom piece, he's well on par to take over the most tackles by a Swan ever in a season. So Parker's at 170. Brett Kirk is 170. Parker did his 2016 all the way to the granny, of course, and Brett Kirk did his in 2009. And they were both at about the same number that Rowy's up to about this time of the season, a little bit less actually. And Rowy is averaging at about 10 tackles per game, give or take, a little less. I
Is he
think
averaging 10 tackles a game?
it's like 10 a game.
It's huge. Wow.
Hang on, no, is it 8 point something?
That's
I got to
still
check
a
it
lot.
out. It's tons, and basically the other two have
two a
averaged
quarter.
six.
That's a huge number. Two a
Yeah.
quarter is big. Like,
And you got like, let's have a quick look. So I know for certain that Parker was at 6.7, but he played a couple more games than Kirky did. Kirky was at 7.5 maybe to get to that same 170 mark. Rowie is looking well on par to surpass that by a couple. And if we go into finals, we go deep in the finals, he's definitely going to take over. So that's huge effort from Rowbottom. He's been told that his game is to tackle, and he's not taking that lightly. He's just gone, yes, sir, and just proceeded to tackle anything that came remotely close to him. So big shout outs to all Rowbottom. It's big stuff from him. All right. Post game. Let's get stuck into it. We've heard Rampy's hit off the ball. He was originally charged for 2 weeks. The Swans challenged it, came out tonight that Rampy got the all clear. He's fine to play. Now, did you have any comments here of how you saw it, or did you see it as a football act or just a bad play? What did you see from your end? There's not a whole lot to say given we already know the result, but just to give you an opportunity to kind of suggest anything you think.
the footage was so terrible that it was kind of hard to know what happened. There were various ways you could guess it. I actually, when I saw that behind the goals footage, the one that they released first, I thought it looked pretty bad because it looks like he diverts off his line to deliberately make contact on that behind the goals one. But the frustrating thing about it is because they have put a bloody a zoom in on the actual incident, you don't get to see what's happening properly up the field, so you can't really look at how the play's unfolding to see why he might have gone in that direction, at least on the edited version that comes through on the AFL media or whatever. But then apparently the Swans had some footage in the that they used in the tribunal that made it look like Rampy had not made any sort of deliberate effort to hit the guy, and that was enough for him to get off. They said that the contact was accidental, and that was that. So he had no case to answer. But listen to this. This is from part of the tribunal transcript. This is great. This is Dane Rampy being Dane Rampy. Bird, who is the AFL's counsel, suggests, because the argument that the Swans made, or that Rampy made, was that I saw my player could have been a short option for the left-footed player who was coming from further up the field to kick it to him, so I needed to get to him and make sure that couldn't happen. And then in the end, the ball got kicked longer. But then the AFL counsel argues that McNeil, that's Rampy's player, wasn't a realistic option for the ball to be kicked to. Rampy says it absolutely was a realistic option. Bird, the AFL counsel, says he didn't kick the ball there, though, did he? Rampy says no, because I did my job. Yeah. so there you go.
That's such a Rampy response.
And that's the final word from Dane Rampy. Nope, that was, and if you look at it that way, then of course you can do that. Like you can try and stop your player from getting the football. I think that it looked really bad on that blurred vision that we had, but luckily the Swans had some other stuff, and apparently the still frames I saw were also beneficial for the Swans.
Yeah, right. Look, the way that I saw it, I kind of felt similar to you. I know yourself and Noddy went back and forth on our little chatter there, and I did see it a little bit like, well, it looked like he timed a clean hit at the right time. He knew that, and he's suggesting the same, he knew that Bird would be rolling backwards. He's going to have to take that step back towards him. And Rampy ran into him just as he was running into him. Like it was a perfectly timed jostle. I don't know how else to pronounce it. I don't know how to describe it. And so it was a 50-50. And the fact that he went out with concussion, to me, felt like that's it. Rampy is done. There's no question this year when it comes to concussion, unless, of course, you're concussing Tom Hickey, and in that case, do what you want because he's got long hair. Apparently, it doesn't matter. But let's not go back into that. But I'm still sour about that. But the fact that he was, the concussed, I felt that it was going to be about it. But it seemed like the decision is made. Yeah, there's probably some other footage. There's a Pruder film out there that we can probably reference. But from what we know now, at least he got off, and we keep a backline at least a little stable now with Melican having to sit out with some injury. So that's the other talking point here. Mate, with Rampy's back in, but with Melican out, who do you see kind of rolls on in?
I don't know. I reckon that they could probably handle, like Rampy and McCartan, with a bit of help from Fox and Blakey, could probably handle Fremantle's forward line. I think, would you need to bring in Francis into the team? I don't know. I don't think Fremantle have got any real dominant forwards. They've got a couple of quite tall young guys, I think. Darcy looks like he's injured. He's been in a moon boot all week, apparently. They're ruck. So,
So Luke Jackson goes up centre, up ruckman, you think?
Yeah. So that's it. So they're going to be short for a tall, or at least an experienced tall, like a key tall. So, I don't know. I'd probably back in the others to do it, and then if Warner's fit, then probably just him in for Melican, and that'd be it. Otherwise, keep the other guys after a good effort.
Yeah, that's not a bad shout. What about if we had Gould back in? Like, I know that we've been trying to find opportunity for him to kind of have another look at it. He hasn't really shown up what we felt he was going to show up at this point, and we were for a while there suggesting that it's between Francis and Gould. Obviously, Francis is taking the lead here. But is this an opportunity for him to maybe come up in emergency, or do we feel that he's just not, at this pointy end of the season, it's not worth the battle?
It kind of feels like his papers are being stamped, doesn't it?
I
think that if they wanted him in the team and he was doing what they needed him to be doing to force his way into the team, then we'd have been seeing him a lot more than that very brief appearance that he made like a month or two ago.
Yeah, no, I have to agree with you. I think I've even seen the same chatter on the Facebook groups where people were screaming to give him an opportunity and now screaming for a trade. So I don't know if necessarily being
what
the
are we
same
going to
people.
trade him for? Like a pat on the back. No one's going to give us anything for Will Gould.
Yeah, he sat in the system forever. He came up and did not a whole lot, and so we don't really have a whole lot to work with. And we're sure as hell, I don't want to play him at this point in the season, given that we still do numerically have an opportunity to get through to finals, especially with the way the competition is churning itself over. I wouldn't want to be taking a chance on him. I would still be inclined, if we were going to take another tour, to let Francis in. I know how, if anyone's listening to this, Superfan Sam is a huge disliker of Francis. I'm the opposite. I'm actually a big fan of Francis.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't have any issue with I don't think he's not a superstar, but he's perfectly able to do a job.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to when Sammy Boy and I get together one day on the podcast, and we'll just battle that out for 50 minutes. So we'll eventually get to that. Gus Bus is the other one. Gus Bus, the beef, has been noted to get ankle surgery, and now it looks like he's going to be potentially sitting out the rest of the season. Horse wasn't clear enough to say that he would miss the whole season, but it sounded like he would be at least out for a big chunk of it. It didn't look like he was coming back.
It's a shame. I mean, he had a really great block of games in that middle part of the season. I mean, he got a Rising Star nomination. He was really starting to come along. And look, hopefully this is just a minor-ish. I mean, ankle surgery is not minor, it's serious. But hopefully it's enough that he can get through it and then, get into some, at least part of the preseason training and be back for the start of next year. It's just really unfortunate for the guy because he'd be doing so well.
I know, and it's like last year as well. I know he had some time off last year. He played one game against GWS. We were like, wow, this kid can actually play. He's just been drafted. He's looking good straight away. Just really rough diving into the ball. Like, it just looks great. And then sat out for some injury for pretty much a good chunk of that season. He's starting to play again this season. When threw him in the middle, as soon as we threw him in the middle, we immediately saw some massive gains there, and now he is out with the injury. So a bit sad. And I will point out that the beef, great nickname that it is actually made by Dan from Did the Swans Win on Twitter. Did the Swans Win on Twitter is one of the better Twitter groups going around. He's got a lot of really good stuff. So make sure if you are on Twitter, go follow him. He's a grand guy. Unfortunately, he's got a bit of health at the moment. His wife let us all know. So Dan, mate, if you're listening, shout out to you, mate. All the best, and want to make sure that he is recognized as the owner of The Beef nickname. That's that big man over there. A damn good nickname to go with it. Mate, okay. So Gus Bus injured. Who do you see rolling in for his spot? What changes do we make there?
I mean, in the current 22 or 23, probably no one, because I don't know. I reckon that probably Wicks and Clark have been doing enough as role players to stay in that 23. But then I guess the one that it does benefit is Roberts, because Roberts played in the VFL last week, looked pretty good from all reports, and so he'd be the next one that'd be maybe trying to push into that 23 and then displace somebody else. But yeah, probably Roberts is the beneficiary in the short term, maybe of Sheldrick getting injured.
It's a bit of a circle, isn't it? So we had Sheldrick got injured. Now we've been playing Stevens. Stevens had not done his things, kind of rolled out. Roberts was in for the beginning of the season. Going forward, he was looking really, really good. At least looking like he was keeping pace of the game. He started getting better and better. He got injured. Sheether came in. Mark Sheether came in. He was looking pretty good. We're like, oh, wow, look at this guy. He's doing all right. Hurt himself in the Collingwood game. Hasn't come back since. We had Angus back in. Angus has been playing well. He's out now. Roberts is back in. This is a constant circle of young players that are all playing a tough role. Just I guess if they're all getting playing time and they're all looking good, then we're just lucky and a little bit blessed to have some decent talent coming up the pool, right? That's all I can think of.
Yeah, and I guess the other one that's on that fringe is Corey Warner.
Of course,
but then you wouldn't think that they're going to drop him against a West Australian team, especially if his brother might come back in, because it's quite a good opportunity for him to go over and play in front of his family and stuff, and friends. So, and has him and his brother played many games together, like maybe one or two, not that many, because I think Chad's been out a couple of times when Corey's been in, if I remember right.
Yeah, the first game, obviously, where he kicked a goal, and I think this might be only the second or third time they play together. So, yeah, pretty early.
Yeah, so he stays in. Yeah, I don't see much change in the team this week, to be honest.
Yeah, so Warner in for Gus Bus. The other one that we asked...
He's already... Because he didn't play already, so he's been out for, a couple of weeks already, hasn't he?
Sheldrick. I think it was just the...
he didn't play last week. Yeah, he didn't play against the Bulldogs, so Milliken's injured, so one has to come in for Milliken. So there's only one force change because Rampy's clear. So one true. Force change, and then others that they might want. But
yeah, I guess Stevens is the other one to ask the question of. I know Stevens has been doing exactly what he needs to do in the VFL. It just doesn't seem to be translating, at least consistently, on the AFL pitch. Is he another one who just... Now? Yeah. Like we had him on the wing, but we've kind of figured the wing out a bit. So,
but between McInerney and Campbell and then Goulden, splitting time across the wings, and then, some of the younger players also getting minutes on the wings. Stevens doesn't play there. I mean, he could potentially be a good halfback flanker one day, but there's no one that is going to make way for him in the back seven at the moment, so there's no spot available there. So where else do you put him besides just in the VFL and maybe at the end of the year that's it for him? He's good enough to play AFL, but he's just not gelled at the Swans for whatever reason.
I mean, he'd be a starting number over there at any of the other teams. Like, a lot of the other teams he'd be starting, but it's just, we kind of have a little bit of gain in some of the younger players that we'd prefer to blood them a bit more, especially if you're competing against Braden and Goulden. You're in a pretty bad spot, right? Like, those two are not leaving a pitch anytime soon. So now that they've kind of solidified those spots, and we find some extra players for some of the other holes, but I still maintain he's going to be a great player and quite a good player. I still maintain that he's got probably, great numbers ahead of him, a good career. It's just not getting it done yet, and I don't know whether we have the patience and the spots to allow for it at the moment. And I don't necessarily think that he wants to do another season in the VFL, considering he is probably ready for a lot of other teams.
Yeah, he's too good for the VFL, but there just doesn't seem to be a spot for him at Sydney at the moment. I mean, McInerney's been playing really well lately, so that doesn't help his cause either.
Is it just an injury away from him getting more game time? Like, touch wood, are we a McInerney injury before he just decides to be the first guy to pull up, or do we just say Warner takes that spot?
Might be too little too late. I mean, there's only 6 matches left and maybe a final or two. And if that said injury doesn't come in that time, there's not much time left for him to re-establish himself at Sydney. I reckon there's a good chance that he's not at the Swans next year.
Yep. Yeah, no, I think that's about right. Unfortunately, it's about right. Okay. All right. Well, that's where that is. The rest of the season, I guess, is looking like we said earlier, we do have a numerical chance at making the finals. It does depend on a lot of other results going our way, a lot of churning up of the top 4, I guess, and all the ones just above us. We are currently in 14th place. I don't feel like we're playing like a 14th place team, that's for sure. We are, though. And we've got some games ahead of us, starting with Freo in WA. It's probably... they're a funny team, old Freo. They're coming 15th, we're coming 14th. I'd suggest, and I've said before, I'm pretty sure on the podcast, that I kind of felt that Freo and the Swans were both these teams that had some good years ahead of us with some of the young talent. I think we're a little bit further into the game than perhaps Freo is with some of the players they have, in particular the forward line. But they're kind of a funny team. They can just turn it on and beat someone consistently and convincingly, and then they'll just do a whole lot of nothing against another team. So do you have anything, any pointers out for Freo that you wanted to flag out? Any changes within the team that might make a difference?
We see this, don't we? And we've seen this with the Swans really too this year, that sometimes you do get these young teams that'll have a strong season and then they will take a sort of a step back for whatever reason, or a combination of reasons. Maybe Fremantle is that team. I mean, they were a finals team last year. They were a strong team last year, and they came into this season as one of the ones that people were expecting to be a sort of consistent finalist going forward the next couple of years at least. They've still got a lot of very good players. Not having Sean Darcy hopefully will help us this week. And they've been pretty ordinary, frankly, and so are the Swans. I think we might let the Swans off a bit too lightly sometimes, but this season has been pretty ordinary, given some of the games that they should have won. Like if you give back even a couple of those matches where the Swans really should have been clear winners, and then they just didn't for whatever outcome or they drew, then the Swans should be a top 8 team, and they're not. And I don't think we should just think, oh well, too bad. No, this is pretty much a wasted season in a lot of ways with the group. It's a good chance to have, maybe not have been a grand final contender, but at least get a couple more finals games into a young group and develop them forward. But in the end, we're fighting for scraps, So I think Fremantle's in a similar situation.
No, I don't disagree with that. The old Freo, I think, is also a team that has got just amazing core players. Sarong, Brayshaw, Ryan, Hayden Young, Jago O'Meara, not so young. Will Brodie, Aish. Like they got some pretty sweet, good young players in their team. Lukey Schultz, Luke Jackson, Darcy. I mean, they've got like a great core of players. They just don't have the depth that apparently it's going to take to go a whole lot further. I was questioning the forward line from the beginning of the season. I mean, from our perspective, it's just, I would like to say that it's injuries that done our number on a lot of it, a lot of close games that we should have, that could have been the deciding factor. We had that one extra player and whatnot, but that's all, hearsay, I guess. And it's probably two teams with a really good young core that are going to battle each other. And I'd suggest we'll battle each other in finals a little bit into the future. That's the way that I see Freo's plan and game going forward. I'm just quietly optimistic of them. So for this week, we've got to smash them is basically the key of it. Any danger players or dangerous matchups that we should consider for the game?
I think Sarong killed us last time we played them, if I remember.
Yep.
Because they beat us not even long ago, like this year at the SCG, right? So they've got good winning form against the Swans. Yeah, Sarong is a very, very good player. Brayshaw. Those two, assuming Darcy doesn't play, I think Darcy ripped us apart last time as well.
Yeah, he just rinsed us. It was awful. Yeah.
Yeah, and the worst thing is, bloody Sarong was a lifelong Swans fan before he got drafted.
So we took Dylan Stevens over Sarong, right? Yeah. Well, I mean, what do you don't know what you know, and he was a massive Swans fan, and I do recall Noddy, because Noddy is, and yourself as well, typically have your fingers to the pulse of players that we need to be picking up. And he was one that we were just convinced we were going to be getting, and we didn't take him. We had the opportunity to and didn't. How that looks now is pretty hilarious because, we would have loved to have a player like that. That would have been just, on top of the great young talent that we have, that would have just been wild. But You can't have it all. Beatson's not going to nail it every single time.
Maybe he's playing a slow game. Maybe because you know what these Victorian clubs do, like Geelong are famous for this. They're like, no, we don't need to draft them now because we'll just get them in 4 years. And maybe that's the plan with young Caleb.
When's young Caleb up for another contract? That's the real question here.
We'd have to check, but contracts can be broken. Contracts don't mean anything. Look at Brodie Grundy, mate. He's up.
Yeah. Brodie Grundy's up for another one. Yeah. He's up for a third team, despite not wanting to leave one.
Shafted by 2 teams in 2 years, mate. I feel for the guy, actually. I really do. He's been slaughtered.
He didn't want to leave Melbourne, so he played for Melbourne, and then they decided to just not play him. That's good stuff right there.
Yeah, after having sold him the old ruck double promise, and then Max Gordon's like, nah, actually, I'm the number 1 ruckman.
Well, I just had a look at Caleb Sarong. He's a restricted free agent at the end of 2027. So we are not seeing him for some time. So let's just leave that there. He's only 22, but it's going to be some time before we ever see him, if we do. So look, anything else to say about Freo in WA? Anything you want to kind of bring up?
I just think we can't underestimate them. Okay, they got smashed in the second quarter by Collingwood, but if you look at the rest of that game, that's what they lost by. I think they conceded 10 goals to 2 in the second quarter against the Pies, but they were pretty good against. Okay, the game was over at half time, fair enough, but still, they're not an uncompetitive team, and we can't go over there expecting that it's going to be like West Coast or North Melbourne just because they're a bottom 4 side at the moment. We're a bottom 5 side at the moment, so. I think that if we go over there without anything less than full effort, it's going to be season over by the end of Saturday night or whenever the game is.
Yeah. Look, they are a strong tackling team. Third, we're second for tackles, so we're basically going to be a bit of a pressure fest, you'd have to imagine. And who's going to kind of keep up? It is what it is. So let's see where that ends up. And do you want to make a tip here before we move on?
Yeah, I reckon the Swans will get up by 10 points.
You know what? I'm gonna break it. I'm gonna break my self-imposed restriction on putting up a prediction. I'm going to suggest the same thing. I would say Swans by about 1.5 goals, basically, is where I would stand. So
I don't reckon it'll be a blowout either way. Actually, I think if it's a blowout, it's probably more likely that we lose. But I reckon we'll get them by a couple of goals.
All right. You heard it here first. You know where to send the hate mail if it doesn't happen.
Yep.
Mate, any other things to talk about? If you've got a couple of things noted here, I noticed.
There's a couple. I'll start with the AFLW. I'll go in reverse order to what we've got them written down here. They released a fixture this week, so the Swans. It's going to be a 10-round season again. A lot of people are frustrated. Me too. I would like to see a full 17-match season to everyone plays everyone, but it's been 10 again. But we're still going to have 10 games of footy to watch, so I'll take it, I guess, for now. The Swans have got a pretty good draw. They've only managed to cop one of last year's preliminary finalists, which is good, in their 10 games, and they play 4 of the bottom 5 teams from last year, and we were one of them, so really we play the other 4 of the bottom 5 teams. Wow. So that's a pretty good fixture for the Swans, so hopefully we can get some wins early. First 2 games of the season are both at North Sydney Oval, first against the Giants, and then the one after that against Geelong, I think. So first 2 matches at North Sydney Oval. There'll be 3 matches at Henson Park. Then they play 2 in Victoria and then 1 each in the other main states, South Australia, West Australia, Queensland, I think. So that'll be exciting. It all starts on the Sunday, the 3rd of September, North Sydney Oval against the Giants. So
that's going to be awesome.
In red and white. It's going to be massive. And get in early, I think, too, because it's a small ground and it'll be a popular game.
It was absolute bedlam when I was there for the first game last year. Full house. Don't bother driving in. We had to double park somewhere. Thankfully, the guy didn't rock up. It was absolute mess. But yeah, North Sydney Oval is a great venue to watch a game. It's just grand. So yeah, what's that? The 3rd of September, Sunday the 3rd of September, 3:00, North Sydney Oval. Yeah. Gonna be a cracker.
Yeah, in the bye round, in the bye round between the end of the regular season and the and the finals, and that feeds in nicely to the other thing that I had here is that they're talking, and there's been a lot of talk this week about what to do in that bye round, and the AFL is interested in using that bye round to play a wildcard weekend where 7 and 10 would play and 8 and 9 would play, and the two winners would become the 7th and 8th teams in the final series the following week. So this is being floated by the AFL. They're going to meet tomorrow apparently with all of the club presidents and whoever else to chat about it. That's what's on the table. What do you reckon?
I hate this. They introduced, so I'm a big baseball fan. They introduced this in baseball like 2007, 8 would be my guess, where basically one team from either division, there's two different divisions in baseball, the American and the National. The team that just missed out basically gets to have one game against another team, and whoever wins out of that then goes through. And now they've turned that into a series and have a best of 3 series because, you got to make money. I hate the idea of this. Even though the Swans would need all the chances they could get for this season to make it into finals, and this would be definitely down our path, it's bad football. We already have 8 of 18 going through the finals, which I personally feel is too many. I think closer to 6. And it's just not fun. Like it doesn't give a true incentive to have a cutoff. Like there's nothing better than having that cutoff when you watch Carlton lose a game against Collingwood in the last minute to drop out of the 8. And they're effectively forcing that moment for every single season by having this one panic game, this one elimination final. We already had the elimination finals. I don't understand why we're doing this again. So I personally don't like it, mate. I don't know how you feel about it.
I'm not sure actually, because I follow both the baseball, like the American baseball, not as closely as I follow the NBA. And in the NBA, it's been pretty good. They've done it 2 years now. This play-in thing, but again, they have a three leg thing. It's not just a or do they? Crap, now I can't remember. It was only on a few months ago. Anyway, it's been quite interesting in the NBA. But I think part of it is because in the NBA you've got a lot of teams. So you've got 32 teams in the NBA. Also, the baseball has 30 teams, I think. And so it means that there's a bit more interest for a bit longer. The AFL's only got 18 teams. It's got a bit over half of what most of these big American leagues have. So I don't think that using them as a reference point and saying just because it works there means it will work. I'm not against the idea, but I'm not in love with it either.
Look, I think if we're going to be wanting to do some kind of entertainment on that bye weekend, and we definitely want to keep that bye weekend between the regular season and the finals, which is the ultimate question. Why don't we just have the AFLW play during the men's season as well? So we can go to 2 games at once during the winter. That'd be grand, be awesome. And maybe we have, ramp up the finals. And if you really want to shorten their season, have the grand final on that bye weekend. Let's do something to collaborate each other. I don't understand why we're just trying to force more ordinary games of football amongst it all. I'm not a big fan of it.
Yeah, you could even do it so that, if you put the AFLW Grand Final on that bye weekend, so it's a standalone event. The AFLW only needs 17 matches to play everyone once, so that means you could start the AFLW about round 7 or round 8 of the men's season, and then build up to round 3 or 4 because you got to have finals of the men's season, and then feed into that, and run 2 parallel seasons. I prefer that than the idea of who cares if Team 10. Who cares?
If you're Team 10 in an 18-team comp, you're irrelevant. I'm sorry. Step away from the finals. Step away from the TV. You've had your chance.
Yeah,
see you later.
One thing, because you mentioned the baseball, like the Major League Baseball in North America, and they have 30 teams in their league, but only 12 make the playoffs. So why the AFL wants to have 10 out of 18 doesn't? I mean, it's for TV and stuff. But
I would even agree 12 is too many. But again, the Americans got to make their money. More football, baseball being played. They play 7-game series for crying out loud. Each series goes on for 9 days. So they drag it on. September is a long time in baseball. It's a long time. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of it. I don't want to see it. I can understand why they're thinking about it because everything that American sports do, they basically try to pop it up to an AFL, but I just don't think this one's a fit. But that's just me. I'm sure there's a good argument to be said for doing it, which is mostly going to be around the concept of money, but that's about it.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how they do explain it, because they'll meet with the clubs and stuff this week, I guess, and then they'll start their hard sell, because the AFL clearly wants it. If they didn't want it, they wouldn't have brought it up. But then I'll be interested to see, and I'll be open to how they explain it and the need for it and etc. And it's not I always like watching more footy, but I don't really care watching 8th versus 9th in the first week of September, to be honest.
Yeah,
I don't care watching 5th versus 8th. It's usually a crap game, you know.
We've seen those teams play enough times in the season. I think that's kind of the point there.
Have a final 6 and be done with it, you know.
All games need to be elimination. Teams. Yeah, purely elimination.
Actually, I would really like that. That's one thing that the AFL could learn from the NFL. Is that all of their... Well, actually, not just the NFL, all the American sports, even though they have like many games, but the NFL only has one match elimination. If you finish top and you lose your first game, tough. See you later.
Yep.
Should have won.
See ya. Yeah, I like that method. That is a true do or die attitude to football. That's kind of what you're there for. I guess it doesn't... The argument for that would be, and it's always an argument, it's always brought up, would be like coming first doesn't come with any advantages. But I mean, the advantage is you got yourself a premiership, I guess.
And you play the weakest team, like in the way the NFL does it. Yeah. And it happened last year. I think Tennessee lost in the first round. They were the top-ranked team. They had a week break and they lost, but they lost against a team that was like a wild card or some crap that they should have beaten, and they didn't. So too bad. See you later.
Yeah, see you later. Thanks for coming. Yeah, I'm for it. All right. Looks like we solved the AFL's problem.
You can hit them up on Twitter today. You can let them know it's taken
Let them know all about that.
Yep.
Mate, just a quick one from me on the one last thing. WA Swans group out there in Perth. For anyone from the Eastern Coast heading over to WA to watch the game for this weekend, make sure to talk to the WA Swans group. I've personally been out there. One of my best mates lives in Perth. He's a cracking guy, but we want to watch the game. Funnily enough, it was like a 1 o'clock game over there, which means, it starts at 10 o'clock WA time. And you already got a beer in hand at 9:30. There's something special about that. Something unusual about that, to be fair. But
sounds like you learned something in Europe, mate, when you were there. You're picking up on some good habits.
So I figured it all out. Yeah. The WA Swans group are freaking grand. And if you're ever over in WA for work or visiting or someone, the Swans are playing on the East Coast or even in the Central, and you want to watch a game, make sure to hit them up. They are super nice. They got this great setup where they got like a full event going on. They have like the big screen. They'll have prizes at halftime and that. They keep the energy going. There's heaps. Everyone's really nice. It's just a cracking bunch. So definitely get out there and say hello if you're over in Perth. Mate, anything for you to bring up the one last thing?
It kind of made me think this game against Fremantle about just how quickly stuff changes in the football. Last time we went out of Fremantle, everyone remembers the Chad Warner, John Longmire hug after that massive win.
Oh, that's
over
right.
There in Perth.
Yes.
That was that game. That was round 18, 2022, and it's now round 19, 2023. We're going back over there again to try and get a win. When we went over there a year ago, they were 3rd, we were 7th, and we were on our way to a grand final. And now they're 15th, we're 14th, and like I said before, we're both playing for scraps. So it changes
football,
fast. You got to enjoy your success while it's there, because blink and it's off.
Mate, a year in football is a long time. A lot can happen. That's where it stands. Well, look, thanks, Stevo. That's awesome. Good point out to there, mate. Well, that's going to bring us to the end of the episode. So on behalf of Bevy Bloods, thank you again for everyone listening in. Make sure to follow us on all the socials and everything in between. If you're in Sydney, let's get out to a pub. We're going to be at the Tudor in Redfern if you want to watch the game with some other Swans fans, so we'll catch you there. Otherwise, until then, up the Bloods and can you Swans?